other than a possible other location for it, for the weed room, if there's any other avenues that you pursue?
I would like to see a letter drafted by one of the direct descendants to the school board.
Okay, I did ask for one, and he said verbal was good enough for him, but I'll see if I.
And that would be McCandless, and who are some of the others that would be?
Diane Getty and Dorothy John are the 4 I talked to.
I'd like to see a signed letter by those people. I don't know if anybody else does.
You said those were those 4, there are others?
You know, there may be. She had no children, and I don't know how many nieces and nephews she had. I know the McCandlesses have another brother in Oregon, but I really don't know. There's, as far as I know, there's nobody else in town. And honestly, Dorothy John worked in this library for years and years. But the other 3 people, as long as I've been here, never walked through the doors. You know, and I'm glad they came up and looked and visited about what was in there. And, you know, I asked questions about, you know, certain items, and they didn't really remember either, you know, when they were given, or I didn't get any information like that from them.
You know, I guess I look at it too in this respect. There's tombstones out in the graveyard that don't get visited at all, but we don't.
Well, the legacy is living. To us, I think I speak for the library board and the teen board, advisory board. The legacy is living right here. It's this library, and if we can't get people in the doors, the kids in the doors, you're not going to have a library. If we can't appeal to these kids to come use it, and it's a welcoming, fun place, and you get them in the door, I can get them to read books. I can promote that. But, you know, they'll become taxpayers, they'll support the library, they'll bring their kids, and it'll keep on going. But, you know, if we can't promote it like that, I don't see a legacy living.
I agree with everything you just said.
One other thing, I'm sorry, go ahead, Rich. One other thing that I would suggest, if it's possible, if you can work it into your schedule before the November meeting, would be to schedule a time with Christy to come up. You can go through the room and see, and she can show you the items actually that are Goodman pieces and those that aren't, because there are a considerable number of things that are in that room that aren't Goodman pieces. And then also you can take a quick tour of the rest of the facility, and you can kind of see what the area issues are that are being discussed. So, if there's no other questions or comments.
Appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
Everyone. All of you.
Okay. Moving on, communications, board member activities. Carol.
Yes, I attended the energy era workshop, and there's a few papers that I brought back from there. Some are just my notes, and some are from superintendents. I guess I could just start at the beginning. This one is the agenda, and so I just took notes on each of those presenters and what they had to say. The whole morning was spent on, or most of the morning was spent on where we get our electricity. And Kansas, most of it is coal and some nuclear and gas. Our area is mostly gas-produced electricity. The coal plants and the nuclear plants, they're just on all the time. And as far as wind energy and other renewable energy sources, you don't ramp those up and down to be supplemented by the alternative energies. But in our area, since it's gas-produced electricity, wind generation is acceptable. Also, where do we get our energy? Do we get it from Midwest or Minnesota?
through,
Okay.
through the city.
through the city. Midwest is mostly gas. We get some nuclear, which I was surprised about that, but mostly gas production in our area. And the presenters all mentioned that the municipalities used to buy their energy low, sell it at a reasonable price, make money. The customers are happy, the cities are making money, and it's not like that anymore. They're buying high now, they're selling very high, and they're not making any money. And the customers, nobody's happy in that. And so everybody's looking for alternative energy sources and conservation, especially. And let's see, where did my other notes go? Okay, now Todd Stevenson is the business manager in Bueller. They failed 2 bond issues recently and had to come up with some money somewhere. And so they started looking at energy conservation and replacing equipment that are energy hogs. And these organizations, the FCIP, Facilities Conservation Improvement Program, these are, let's see, on the other page I wrote down, is designed to be easy for agencies to participate in, resulting in the implementation of more energy conservation projects. And you use those kind of in conjunction with these others. And ESCO is a company that would come to your facility and actually show you ways that you can save money and offer explanations on what equipment is good, and they have to guarantee their work. I mean, they're not going to suggest that you buy new equipment and then it not pan out. The KCC, which I could never find. You can go to kcckansas.gov and get lots of good information. But those 3 organizations together can actually help you build a whole project. And within a certain amount of time, they have to be able to make back all the money that you spent on renovations or building. Let's see, who's the next guy? Oh, we had 2 representatives there. I really don't remember what they said about energy. I think it was a lot of I don't knows was going to come up. But they talked about continuity from secondary to post-secondary schools, autism, all-day kindergarten, and virtual schools. So that's what my notes were on that, because I don't really know what they said about energy. Ryan Freed is buildings program manager for the KCC. He was an interesting guy. He had long hair and a business suit and seemed like a very bad attitude towards government, and yet that he's in the middle of it all the time. And he had a lot of good things to say about having those organizations work together for you. He said that they started out not having very many school districts use them, and now over half of all the business that they do is done for school districts. Let's see. Oh, and as far as energy hogs, flat screen TVs were mentioned by more than one presenter. They said an hour of a flat screen TV being on is like standing in front of your refrigerator for an hour and fanning the door. I didn't know that one. But they also mentioned that we have so many more people, and so many more people using more energy, and we buy gadgets that run all the time, and so our energy usage is going up. It's not going down, and we're going to have to find other sources in conservation. The last 2 presenters, Alaire Homburg and Aaron Homburg, the superintendents of Quinter and Paradise, they both have wind generators. I didn't really catch all of their information. They were like a tag team, comedy team. They were so funny. It was hard to keep up with them. But Alaire Homburg from Quinter, they've had their wind generator for a couple of years. They paid $145 for theirs. More recently, Paradise got theirs, they paid $210. Now why there's such a difference in what they get out of it, I'm not sure. It must be their building usage. But in Quinter, they get up to 55% of their electricity from the generator, and they sell back to the company. In Paradise, they get 75%. And the way they explained it, which was not very well for me to write it down, but the wind generator is on their side of the meter. So they use from their side of the meter. They also sell back to the company. So when the superintendent from Paradise was explaining his 75% usage, that they get 75% of their usage from the generator, that they also sell back to the electric company and will make as much money to pay all of it. So, and
7 to 10 year payoff, it says on.
right,
Banners.
yes, and he said that will go down because energy costs are so high. Because, that's just gonna be more. They were both very pleased. They didn't have any negative comments in Quinter. The Paradise superintendent didn't mention any either. They have a brake on the blade that will stop if it's going over 50 per hour. And one day it stopped, and they had 13 calls right away to know why their generator wasn't working. So the community is really into it and really behind it. The thing that I didn't get to ask a lot of questions because they're just funny. It was just funny. But the generator is right on the other side of the football field. So their school football field generator. I don't know what it would take if we could even have one here. I did ask what environmental issues they had to deal with, like, the only issue that the Paradise superintendent mentioned was that the spot that they were gonna put it on, when they told the community that's where they were gonna put it, a little lady came up and said, "Do you know that I own that?" And he said, "No, I didn't know that." But they'd been mowing the school had been mowing that spot for all those years. He had no idea. Anyway, that's where they put it. Like I said, there's no negative comments. It's worked really well for them. They've only had it up for a few years, though. The Quinter superintendents only had it up for a few years. Then the last one, Jerry Cullen, Superintendent, Barber County North, USD 254, 4-day school week. They were just really excited about that. And I just included all of his information because there was a lot. And the things that I took away from that, when we talked about a 4-day school week years ago, we finally just flat out decided that it didn't do much for kids. And yet that's not what he's saying is happening in their district or the districts around them that are using it. They have longer class periods, they have higher test scores. I think that he said that they went from 111th in the state to 86th the first year. They have better attendance, and obviously with a 4-day week you need fewer substitutions. You can do all your, I can't come to school today business on Friday, or whatever day they picked. They did not have a block schedule. The teachers, instead of having their curriculum spread over like 183 days, would have to have it spread over 166 days, and yet when they got through all of their 166 days, they had covered their material that they usually covered in 183, and then could go beyond that. But that's all in that information. It was very interesting, but these were all ways to take care of an energy crunch. Most of them, when they were talking about how they saved money in their districts, pointed out that they could put money back into instructional areas, and that's part of our goals. That's number one on our, we're glad we have good instructional staff. And it's also part of that foundation idea of putting money back into, or using the foundation to be able to support some staff. Anybody have any questions? I wish you could have all gone. It was way too much information for one person to absorb.
You did good.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Dr. Kenworthy, have you worked with any of these, like the Facilities Conservation Improvement Program and the energy service companies and stuff like that?
I've worked with the company that's similar to the ESCO. And probably had a couple other companies comparable to that who contacted us and visited with us, and basically they'll do an interview with you over the phone and say, okay, tell us what kind of things you have in this area, this area, this area. And they tell you whether or not they think would be worthwhile for them to come out and work with you. And so far none of them have said they do. When I tell them the age of things like our boilers and air conditioners and type of windows we have in the majority of the building and things like that, they start saying, well, we've already done a lot of those things. So, but I still talk to them whenever they contact us, thinking there might be somebody that can do that. Plus, excuse me, the company that we already work with that does our programming for the software, we do our energy maintenance stuff, they annually meet with them and say, what things can we tweak or change that might help us out a little bit more. The thing that probably would, at this point, help us the most on those is if we were to change what temperature settings we use. But that's gonna be a culture change, because we'll have to, in order to do that, even if we change it 2 or 3 degrees, for more people than usual, in the wintertime it's going to feel colder than what they're comfortable with, so they'll have to dress more warmly. And in the summertime it might be warmer than what they're used to. Because that's our biggest expenses for heating and cooling, lights and other things like that aren't as much as what the cooling and heating is. That's our biggest. One thing I would comment on the wind generating, and it may be something that we can or should look at. Both of these have been in this for a relatively short amount of time. One of the costs that's not factored in here is most of these type of what I would call high-end wind generator systems have variable pitch blades, and so one of the costs that probably isn't reflected in this is those over time wear out and go bad, and you have to replace them, and it's at a significant cost. Because when you do maintenance on these kind of things, it's not something you just put a ladder up to. You generally have to hire a full-size crane to work on them. And the kind of things that control the blades, if you have to, or if you have to replace blades, it's a significant cost again. So it may be something that we can or should look at. To answer maybe your question about wondering how it is that they can make money on the deal if they're only covering that much of their school usage. And it has to do with most of these wind generators operate, as long as you have wind, usually the range that they're operational at is once it gets above 5 miles an hour wind. Most, the even larger percentage of them, 7 to 8 miles per hour, just about everything can operate in that range. But they operate when they're like that 24/7. And so you do have peak times when you're operating in your building that it might not be able to carry the load for the building. And when that's happening, you're pulling energy off the energy grid back into the building, but as soon as your school day's done, the thing is still running, and so that's when it's creating more electricity than you're using, and it goes back the other way. And it literally, the way most of them are set up, it literally just turns the meter box backwards. And so when they come out and read the meter, if you have less power showing on the meter than when you started the month, then you get paid for that. So
I don't know if these two districts just put these in on their own, or if they employed an ESCO to help them. But I know that this Ryan Freed with the KCC, he talked about when you buy equipment, you have to look at the life cycle of the equipment, but just like what you're saying, the blades are going to wear out, they're going to have to be worked on. And within a certain amount of time, you have to be able to pay off that whole piece of equipment, all the repairs that it may need in that amount of time and wearing out or replacement. And you have to be able to save with that amount, in that amount of time, the money that you spent on it, or they won't approve for you to, I mean, they wouldn't suggest you even do it. Garden City Community College was there. They are a member of the KASB, and there are 11 other community colleges that are members. I didn't know any of them were members. But they were talking about wind generation, of course, out there in western Kansas, but they are planning on having a program to repair wind generators out there. So, you know, it's up and coming. We're going to have to take care of energy costs somehow, so just keep your minds open.
well, in Pratt Community College, they have 3 that they're operating down there. I don't know if it's part of the repair program, but we could contact someone down there, see if they have someone who'd be willing to come out and speak to the board, just to talk about how they did their process and what the purpose of that is, whether it's just experimental or whether they're actually looking to offset costs.
And Pratt,
I would suggest that you get with the city council here, because they're considering 3 windmills to supplement the power here, so maybe you could share a lot of information or some maintenance or whatever you need to do. So that's an idea for you to do.
BTI, Buckland, Greensburg, Pratt is going to become a dealer. We're going to be there at Greensburg, it's going to be a dealer for them, and they're putting them up at Greensburg, and they're going to be selling them, I guess, what I was told.
Pratt and Quinter and Paradise all acquired theirs from the same company, Integrity Wind Systems.
I think there's also been a meeting set, is that right, Bruce?
Yeah.
And for the
Yeah, we
county and the
talked about
city
that.
and the school to get together
Yeah.
with Steve Wyckoff. Goal setting.
Okay. Anyone, Mitch just said what I was going through. I had met outside of here with people interested in meeting with Steve Wyckoff, and it looks like there's going to be a meeting the Thursday following our next board meeting, November the 6th it is. So you might keep that open on your schedule to attend that. It would be with the school board, county commissioners, city council, and
Stafford and Maxwell have been invited as well.
the name of that organization here in town that he's.
Chip.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so keep that open, hopefully you can attend that when it comes in. Right now, we don't know the location, but it will be here in town somewhere.
And nobody mentioned anything about solar. I don't know if that's because there was such a big push on the wind energy or why that was, but nobody even talked about solar.
I think one of the reasons why that isn't pushed as much is just, especially in this part of the country where we get hail on a regular basis, that's kind of a hard one to protect against. Because some of the things you'd have to do to protect against hail are going to cause inefficiencies in that type of a system. So.
And I thought we could put the wind generator in the courtyard, but after listening to those guys talk, I didn't know. They had 140 yards of concrete for the pad, and
That's a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
Okay, any other board members, activities or reports? Administration? Jump right up.
Just very quickly, first of all, I have to apologize to Bruce. I said he shouldn't be on the audit committee because he couldn't add, and if you look at this, it says 1, 2, 3, 3 down the side of my paper.
Yeah.
My apologies, Bruce.
As long as I know there's somebody in the same boat, that's all right.
Read with a Grandparent Day. Jill Rockenbaugh, our librarian, always organizes that. That was a great day with the amount of people that we had come in and read with our kids. Usually we get to use the lawn outside, but it was kind of rainy that day, so we were inside all day. But it gets a lot of people in the building, and we always appreciate them coming. Parent-teacher conferences, you can kind of see there the difference in percentage of attendance by parents. And the main reason for that, grades 1 through 4, is because they have appointments. We make appointments for them. It's easy to go. You have the one teacher that you need to visit with. And it was mentioned earlier too about the parents online, people using that, and we had several parents say that they use that and they didn't see a need to come in and visit because grades were high and so on. The first number 3, school pictures, was today, and that's always an interesting day at school. You see hairdos you'll never ever see again, and kids dressed up that you don't recognize them. But it's a good day. Life Touch was in, and they did a good job getting us through with those pictures. Just upcoming events. Fire Safety Day is on Thursday. Mike Sanders always calls and organizes that. It'll involve kids in preschool through grade 4 will be involved in those activities. On the 16th, Kansas Learning Center for Health, they come every year, do a presentation for grades K through 6. Each year it's something different for them, and they get some really good ideas. If you'll notice on the next one, we have changed the date of the elementary music program. On the calendar, it's the 21st. We moved that to Monday the 20th. We had a conflict with hosting regional volleyball that night. So we got that on the calendar as a change. And then our first major party, I guess you would say, for the kids is coming up on the 30th. We'll have a parade, weather permitting, around the square about 2:15 is when we'll probably start that. And then we'll have all the kids after that. Questions?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay, I just do the numbers, the enrollment numbers. You can see we lost, we had one senior that moved today, but we lost from that number, so we're actually 165. You're all aware of the sub-states, the regionals. Everybody knows now we're going to host a regional in volleyball, and cross country will go to Meade, and tennis will go to Cimarron. We are 1A, and everybody's aware of that now, and so what I did was I just included with you, or for you, the classifications, and you can get it off the Acacia website, but they're all there. The breakdown, the range of schools. You can see that our numbers for grades 10 through 12 is 77. 3 years ago they were 107. 2 years ago 101. Last year 97. This year 77 for grades 10 through 12, and the range for 2A was 121 to 81, and 80 to 16 is 1A. And then they break that up for schools, as you can see the classifications are. I mentioned about parent-teacher conferences, and just gave you a percentage we figured out. Parent-teacher conferences, just a note there, we could go back and we will at parent-teacher conferences at the end of the 9 weeks, and then we'll hold grade cards, and to get the grade cards, they'll come to the parent-teacher conference. That would be a way to increase the attendance and go back to doing it at the end of October or middle of October when the 9 weeks is over. Throwing that out. I put in there the board of directors. I talked to you last month about we had a meeting, and I went ahead and included the at the very last sheet I gave you was the rule that there were 68 attendance of the board of directors, 8 were not present. So of the 68, they had discussion, quite lengthy discussion, and then the vote was 42 to 26 in favor of the rule that allows coaches to work with and coach in basketball, football, and volleyball. So that it would be equal to the other sports. From Saturday preceding Memorial Day to the second Saturday of standardized calendar week 2, which is July 18th. And on that last month when I gave you that little calendar that had the different dates and everything, it's all on there. So you can reference it there if you want to, but it happens to be 7 or 8 weeks. So that passed.
So now coaches are allowed to be with their entire team?
Yeah. From starting Saturday preceding Memorial Day, which this next year would be May 23rd, until July 18th. And then the dates will vary a little bit each year, but it'll always be the Saturday preceding Memorial Day until the Saturday of standardized calendar week 2.
And within that, that would include if they're going to have some sort of a sports camp, is that correct?
You have to have, and now you used to be able to have your summer camps up until the first week in August. Now your camps have to be completed by the Saturday of standardized calendar week 2. So volleyball, basketball camps have to be done by that Saturday also.
So you can take your whole team and play?
You can practice if you want to. You can practice and coach in an MAYB basketball, coach your own kids. You can practice with them. You can go to camps, take them, 10 football kids to camps and go there and coach. You don't have to worry about a percentage rule anymore. That stuff, yeah. So it's going to be the same as it is in baseball, as it's always been in baseball. Coaches could coach baseball in the spring and then coach in the summer. It's always been that way. Same way with softball. They could coach in there and then coach. Swimming, diving, all those sports. But it wasn't that way for volleyball, basketball, and football. So that's what that's the rule there, so that was the vote. There's a few other things coming around that are tossed around for different rules and stuff that are going to be talked about at regional meetings later this month. There'll be meetings at the Kansas Athletic Administrators meetings in March, and then there'll be things coming up in April. We're talking about changing classifications, maybe, and instead of having 64, 2 and 3 and 4A schools, we have 48 instead of 64. And then we'd have a class separate, 1 and 2A would be separate from each other. So there'd be a separate 1A, there could be a 1A school that plays 11-man football. So they're talking about that. There's a lot of stuff out there. They're talking about having, if you're 8-man 1 or 8-man 2 school and you play football, then you would have a separate basketball, volleyball, and quiz bowl champion in 8-man 1, and you'd also have one in 8-man 2 in basketball, volleyball, and quiz bowl. So that's also going to be out there. Now those are all on the agenda for regional meetings in this month, and I'm sure some of them will pass, some of them may not, and then I'll move on to the next meeting, and then they'll move on to next spring. So that's just some of the things that are just out. We'll keep you abreast of what's going on.
One question that I know was asked of me, this determination on 2A or 1A is done annually based upon the enrollment we have in the top 3 grades. And so the question I was asked was, well, is there a chance we'll go back up to 2A next year? If you look at the senior class has 33, the freshman class has 30. What that will do is that number is going to drop by 3. If everything stayed the same, we go from 77 to 74. So that doesn't help move the other direction. So unless everybody else were going to take a sudden drop too.
So
3 more years we'll be up there.
Bigger numbers.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Word. Yep. Can you really answer for us?
A few things. One, Mr. Bergen touched on that we're going to be hosting regional volleyball on October 21st. That will start at 3 p.m. for the tournament. In order to get the building cleared out, and we are going to have a lot of our staff help run that. We'll be ending the day at 5th hour on that day, which is approximately 1:30, I believe.
127, yeah.
And the teams that are attending are Cabrera Heights, Chase, Claflin, Maxville, Roselle, and then St. John. Again, November 6th is that community dialogue. That'll be facilitated by Steve Wyckoff. Just as we get more information about that for time and place, we'll let you know. We have 3 board members who have contacted us about going to the KASB regional meeting tomorrow at Stafford. If you feel like you still want to go, we can probably still get you in if we call early in the morning. So, but we're going to at this point. And then also October 30th. Excuse me. The last couple of years, there's been an event, and I'm not exactly sure who it is that sponsors this, but it's Trick or Treat on the Square, in which lots of people from the community come to the square and set up there with their treats for kids, and the kids actually just kind of walk the square and do that rather than going out and trick or treating in the neighborhoods. We were contacted the last couple of years about being a weather backup location. We've agreed to do that again. So if it's bad weather on the 30th, and I think this goes from like 5 to 6:30, then the backup would be to use the North Gym, and we would just have the kids walk around the perimeter of it. They wouldn't actually walk on the gym proper, but it'd be a place for them to still conduct that. And we have a football game that night, so starting at 7. Last thing I had was we did have this is Fire Safety Week, and just coincidentally had nothing to do with the fact it's Fire Safety Week, but the fire marshal showed up today to do our inspection this afternoon, and we didn't have any citations, so that was good to have. In years past, we've had a few minor ones, but we've gotten all those corrected, so that's a clean bill of health on that. So I think that's all I have, Mr. President. Oh, I take that back. I do have one more thing. I apologize. I was contacted by Nick Garcia, and this is an item that the board desires to look at this. I would put it on the agenda for next month. Nick Garcia wants to pursue the idea of getting a new scoreboard. So I would board at the football field. You don't vote on this, but if you can give me some sense of do you want to look at this or not, what we have is fine, so we don't need to. Give me some sort of guidance on how you'd like to go with that. He is not looking at that from the school district and buying it. He's looking at it from the standpoint of contacting 1 or 2 major donors, I think, who would pay for the board.
Let him go for it.
The board had
Would that be a new control box as well?
Yeah,
It would have to
be
be.
a whole new system. It'd be a wireless system, so it's the dollar amount for it's going to be somewhere between $12,000 and $13,000 probably.
It'll be LED too,
It would. So
It might be hard to find that donation in this climate.
yeah, the board doesn't have any strong feelings against that, then I would visit with him and let him go ahead and at least make initial contacts with whoever it is he thinks he might be able to get involved with that. And the current board we have does function. It is old. Last time we sent in a control box to get it serviced, they had to basically kind of manufacture some of the parts because they don't make them anymore. and so, and we've had some issues off and on with problems with it. It's currently functioning fine, but it is very old. It was originally purchased by what at that time was First
National
Bank,
Bank.
First National, is now American State Bank. I did talk to representatives of the bank, and yes, that happened a long time ago, and they don't have any interest in looking at supporting a new board, so. That's all I had, Mr. President.
All right. Looks like we're ready for executive session items.
Well, we have executive session, we have the personnel and the student issue. What I would like to do is to have us go into executive session first for the student issue with myself, the board, Mr. Bergen, Mrs. Haynes, who's school counselor, and Tyler, and Mrs. Clark for 10 minutes.
We have a couple minute break for this.
Need a motion, please.
For 10 minutes,
Yeah, for the student issue,
for the student, then we'll go back out.
for personnel.
Mr. President, I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing a student-related matter with the board and superintendent and Natalie and who all did you name?
Tyler,
Tyler,
Mrs. Haynes,
Mrs. Haynes,
Mr. Bergen.
Mr. Bergen. After a 5-minute break, please.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to go in executive session for 10 minutes for student issue. Any discussion? All in favor, right hand. All opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Principals and
Not here, just principal.
Okay.
It might be
Thank you.
about me.
Thanks, Mrs. Haynes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is Wayne Cooper, food service position. And 2 hires, would recommend to the board to approve Amy Engel for food service and Tasha Beckett for classroom A position.
Mr. President, I would move that we accept the resignation of Wynn Cooper, and also we hire Amy Engel and Natasha Deckett, food service and para part-time.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to hire and to accept the resignation of Gwen Cooper and hire Amy Engel and Natasha Deckett for food service and para part-time. All in favor, right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Looks like we're at future agenda items.
Future agenda items that we have, state assessments, scores, and AYP targets at the next meeting. Also, we'll be having a decision item on the agenda regarding facilities upstairs in the library in terms of room and where things are going to be put, hopefully. And possibility of looking at policy involving students involved in being pages for United States Congress. Our next meeting is November 3rd at 7 p.m.
And a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn, any discussion? All in favor, right hand. All opposed, same sign, motion carried.